I'm not normal human being. If I would be, I would not be practicing violin, I would be do something else. It's no use practicing too much. First you have to find out how to do it the best. You have to be able to invent ways of doing it better. If somebody doesn't know what invention means, he should stop violin playing. You can't explain everything. Howard didn't explain to me.
This is a story of one of the finest violinists of the 20th century, Nathan Mironovich Milstein, who was born in Odessa on the Black Sea in 1903, and whose boisterous spirits landed him in so much trouble that at the age of 7, his mother thrust a violin into his hands to keep him out of mischief and took him to Pyotr Stolyarsky for lessons. With Stolyarsky, he made such astonishing progress in 4 years that at the age of 11, his mother took him from Odessa to St. Petersburg, to the class of the legendary Leopold Auer, where he made quite an impression.
There are many pupils. Some of them very famous, eventually became famous, like Yasha Haypets, Polyakin, Zeidel. And after I finished, and he says, addressing to the pupils, he says, well, how do you like that Black Sea technique, Chernomorskaya technika?
72 years later, at his last public recital, his playing retained the same arresting freshness and astonishing accuracy that so impressed Leopold Auer in 1914. No other violinist in the 20th century has been able to play like this at the age of 82.
And after I finished addressing to the pupils, he says, well, how do you like that Black Sea technique, Chernomorskaya technika? I don't remember what people answered.
Whatever the answer, the word went around that Auer was so stunned that he fainted, and the rumor was to have interesting consequences for the Milstein family.
I supposedly made extraordinary impression, it's not true, on Auer, that Auer fainted. There was some correspondent in conservatory says, what's new? And they told him that there was a Russian played and Auer fainted. It's not true. And that was very disturbing for Glazunov, who is the director of conservatory. And he asked my mother and myself to come to his cabinet. And he said, you know, Mrs. Milstein, it's not done like that. It's not supposed to. My mother was not responsible that somebody wrote that he fainted. Anyway, he felt guilty that he offended a lady. And he said, Mrs. Milstein, bring your son to the orchestra pit. You can't go in the opera because it's all for imperial family and corps diplomatique. And I was, for me, for Russians, Tsar was like next to God. And of course I was thrilled when I saw that. Then comes Boris Godunov. Shaliapin falls on his knees, and he said all the coronations seen for the Russian Tsar on knees. That's how I came, because Glazunov asked me to come.
And what impression did it make on you?
I was almost sick for 10 days. At that time, people didn't imagine that's possible. Emotion can disturb you so much.
And so he discovered his artistic sensitivity and a passion for music that has lasted until this day. Among the great performers, the story is not uncommon, except that in Nathan Milstein's case, it was not an instrument that so impressed him, but the music of Mussorgsky, and above all, the performance of Shaliapin as Boris. In fact, until that moment, Nathan Milstein had been a rather reluctant student of the violin, at the watchful insistence of his mother.
She insisted. She didn't come with a revolver. She didn't force that way. She simply insisted. And he insisted that mother at that time means she'll win. I wouldn't win at all. She wanted me to play violin, and I succumbed to it. I don't mind much. It didn't do any harm to me.
There was not much to mind about. At the age of 11, Nathan Milstein opened his ears to music, his eyes to the glories of St. Petersburg, found himself in company with Jascha Heifetz and several other notable talents in the violin class of Leopold Auer, the foremost teacher of his time. And all of this under the loving care of an intelligent and devoted mother.
Because my mother made me play violin, and she went with me to St. Petersburg, abandoned the family, 7 children, 6 children without me. Can you imagine? I loved her for that. But not because of violin. I didn't like so much violin. But after I went to St. Petersburg, I was attracted because there's so many other violinists playing much better than I, and they attracted me. I tried to imitate them.
It was not long before the rest of the class was trying to imitate Nathan Milstein, whose talent and application had a sure-footedness about them that was in time to win the admiration of most of the great performers of the 20th century.
I used to go to the conservatory at Nihach, because already when I was at St. Petersburg, it's always was snow. Wonderful. Snow is crisp, and the color of the snow was sometimes like a pearl. Yellow, green, pink, wonderful. That was beautiful. And the St. Petersburg, beautiful forests, they're all white birch. You know, birch that, when the light, sunshine comes through the forest, beautiful. And the wonderful part was our class, knowing that he's a famous man, not only because he did something, and he was old. I used to respect very old.
In Auer's class, he met and competed with the best young violinists in St. Petersburg. But one day, he encountered a young pianist, and it led to a dramatic turning point in his life and career. A young Vladimir Horowitz was brought by one of his teachers to Nathan Milstein's first concert in Kiev.
At my concert in Kiev, near Chernobyl, I played there. Horowitz came with his sister, and they invited me to next day for tea, his family. And I came next day, we had tea, and I stayed for 3 years in their house. You know me, the men that came to dinner. I came to tea, stayed 3 years. But Horowitz impressed me with extraordinary knowledge of all operatic music. He played Wagner, played Rimsky-Korsakov, Wagner, Siegfried, when Siegfried sharpens his sword. Beautiful. And the Coq d'Or, Rimsky-Korsakov, he arranged for piano without writing. He played. I couldn't believe it.
And so began a friendship that would last a lifetime, and a youthful partnership that took them on many a tour of the new Soviet Union, and earned them the title Children of the Revolution.
When we were called Children of the Soviet Revolution, every Ministry of Art in every city had a committee that helped us to give concerts. And we used to take the money from the public, and the expenses were paid by the government. It was very comfortable.
They enjoyed themselves, travelled far and wide, and caused a great stir. But not all of their experiences were so comfortable.
There was a kind of a funny man. He had golden hair, in a toga with wooden shoes. Obviously, he was a communist, but he thought that workers need great music. And he arranged a concert near Rostov, where the factory was cigarette factory. 20,000 workers. I supposed to play Bach, and Horowitz played Liszt. And of course, it was big ado. And Mr. Abrahamov, he talked about Bach, polyphonic music, about fuga. Can you imagine? To 20,000 workers. And he said, that's wonderful music. Now you can enjoy that music. Before you couldn't. And there were many shoeshine boys. Those shoeshine boys, they didn't mix words. If they didn't like something, they would say that. And I started to play after he talked for an hour. They tolerated his talking because they thought Volodya and I will come started to make some very gay music. And when I started to play Bach, after 2 minutes of playing, they said Budku. It means, go away. not the workers. The workers were always shy, but those shy, too shy, they were not shy. When they said, go away, the workers helped him. And then Abrahamov came on the stage and said, look, you not grateful, we give you great music, before the capitalists only enjoy that Bach, and be quiet. And he went. I came back to the stage, played again, continued Bach. Even less than 3 minutes, they started to say Budko again, go away. Of course, I left, and Mr. Abrahamov with the golden hair came on stage. He started to scold them. He said, look, you should be ashamed of yourself. When the capitalists, they enjoy that music, and they very difficult to understand. I understand that it's very difficult, but you have to try to be. He said, if somebody doesn't want to listen, they should not spoil other people's pleasure. If you want to go, go away, but don't be quiet. I started to play, started again. And he said, I told you if you want to go away, you go, but don't make noises. Yes, Mr. Abrahamov, we want to go away, but all the doors are closed.
An inauspicious start for the children of the Soviet Revolution. But the music of Bach remained an abiding passion. And while still in his teens, he played all of Bach's music for violin and learned most of it by heart. Soon, his apparently effortless and strikingly seamless playing of Bach became a source of wonder for contemporary musicians. And then, one day, Sergei Rachmaninov heard him play the E major Bach partita and was so impressed that he arranged 3 of the movements for piano for a recital in the Salle Pleyel in Paris, and to which he invited Nathan Milstein.
And he made 3 pieces from the partita for the piano. And eventually I heard them. When he invited me to his concert, he paid in Salle Pleyel in Paris for the benefit of the immigrants. And he said, Mr. Milstein, listen to how do you like it? And I told him after the concert, I like everything except that chromatic sequence, which is not good for Bach. And he told me, go to hell. I've always, like, everybody sent me to hell. And I was very upset, not only because Rachmaninov was upset, because after concert there was a reception at his daughter's in Paris, supper, and I'm sure that I couldn't go anymore. But Natalia Alexandrovna, his wife, was Nathan Mironovich, don't pay attention. And he was nervous. You come with us. And I went up to the concert. And there were 4 composers, Glazunov, Rachmaninov, Konius, and Metner, all great musicians. We sit, and he says, first thing he says, Sasha, Glazunov, did you hear in the Bach some chromatic sequence? Glazunov didn't think, he probably didn't listen even. He was more thinking about his wine and beer he will have at dinner. And that was probably everybody, Rachmaninov, Metner, and Konius. I was the only one that heard it. I was upset because I thought maybe it was my bad taste. No good. And if no for Bach. He was not satisfied, but I left, of course, but I still had my Russian cutlet and a little vodka. And next morning, I went to my newspaper. And coming back, he said, Mr. Milstein, Mr. Rachmaninov would like to see you now. And I was boring. Maybe he sent me to hell, to something else. I got up, opened the door. He looked through bashfully, not daring to go in. He says, Nathan Mironovich, come, vous avez raison. You are right, you are right. Vous avez raison, je fais ça. There are many occasions he said, Vladimir Semyonovich, because something happened with Horowitz. And he says, Horowitz says, no, I don't believe it. The Rachmaninov says, no, Mr. Horowitz, I have a good experience with Mr. Milstein. He has a good ear. That's all.
So were you happier then?
Happy, I could live then.
Tell us about the time when you played fake Malipiero for him.
I didn't write in the book.
Yes.
I used to go with Pisigorsky very often, Horowitz to him, for tea. And at this time we went with Pisigorsky alone. And we tried to make jokes. With Pisigorsky, we decided we make a duo for cello and violin by some composer, Malipiero. He knew that Malipiero is a kind of futurist. Now it doesn't sound like that. And we arranged so that he starts in the cadenza and I start in the cadenza. And Rachmaninov was very interested to listen because it was not bad.
Were you improvising?
No. We had the basis how to do it. Start a team and then I played and the improvisation and the cadenza. But after the cadenza I come again and I go high. Then I go high, I don't know what to do. I start making trills. I laughed myself and we burst laughing, both of them. And he left. He knew it's a joke. Because it's not a question of humor. We took him for a ride.
He was offended?
Obviously. He didn't come back for dinner. We didn't mean it. It was a joke, musical joke.
Happily, the friendship survived the joke, because their relationship with Rachmaninov was something of great importance to the three Russian émigrés, who had now come to be known as the Three Musketeers.
Horowitz and Pichigorsky and I used to go very often to Rachmaninov villa in Hertenstein, near Lucerne. And sometimes Pichigorsky and I went. On this occasion, Pichigorsky and we were going for tea to Rachmaninov. In Rachmaninov, after lunch, used to sleep, like I do now. And not now, at this moment. And Pichigorsky, he arrived there, I arrived, I took out the violin from the case. Pichigorsky took the cello, and we saw music. It was Bacalise, famous for the voice. And Pichigorsky took the violin, standing up between the legs, and I standing up, of course. And we played octave unison. You know that piece. And obviously, Rachmaninov was rested, slept, and he comes out in a pyjama with hair like this. And he played the piano part. And also, when we finished, we couldn't see him, he left immediately. Then later on, I went to America. There was his friend, our friend, Alexander Greiner. He used to be giving away Steinway pianos for performing artists. And he said, Nathan Mironovich, что вы сделали? What did you make Rachmaninov cry? Every time he tell me that story, he cried.
So you mean he came in when you were playing, he joined you, he said, and he went out all without saying anything?
Standing up, finished without word. He went back. It's a really very touching story because that was really touching. We played very well. You see, that's how I think supposedly gifted people can do. We never rehearsed. You somehow adjust yourself to the music. If somebody is talented, one talent to the other talent.
The exceptional musical affinity with Grigor Piatigorsky was matched in the warmth of the personal relationship, which was one of enduring value for both men. But then Nathan Milstein is not only respected by all of his colleagues, but also genuinely liked by almost all of them. From Leopold Auer and Sergei Rachmaninov to Fritz Kreisler and Pinchas Zukerman.
But I remember once I saw you at Wurlitzer's in New York, many years ago. And you had your overcoat, it was wintertime. You had an overcoat, you had a hat, and you came in the room, and I was playing something. And you said, I said, why don't you try this violin? And you just took it, and it sort of was over here on your belly. You played Paganini, up and down and up.
No,
and
but
down.
that's easy. But see,
How is it easy?
No, I'm sorry. Mechanics are always easy for everybody.
Yeah, but not here on the belly button.
Anything. No, but obviously it was comfortable for me.
But it always looked so easy for you. What kind of advice would you give to a young violinist now?
That's what couldn't say better than what Auer said to me.
What did he say?
Don't practice, don't think with your hands, but with your brain.
But you said something about not going to, after a certain amount of time, once you know how to play the violin, you should do what?
Invent anything. And invent actually. If somebody doesn't know what invention means, you should stop violin playing. You can't explain everything. Howard didn't explain to me. He didn't tell me how to do it. It means also not practicing only. Think how to achieve quality. Practicing doesn't achieve quality. You achieve quality only when you do it without opposition of difficulty. Because the difficulty opposes your possibility of doing better.
Tell me, what's the most difficult piece you ever played?
For me,
Yeah.
the pistol waltz.
No, first of all,
What I made for violin, terribly difficult.
oh, it's impossible. I tried to play once the first
No,
page.
it's possible.
Mephisto. That's the most difficult, huh? What about Ernst? You played Ernst? All the etudes of Ernst?
Not all.
Not all, but
I came to Auer with a concerto.
with the concerto. You were 11.
No.
Da-da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum.
But you know, I once played that concerto later, much later, in Paris.
Did you record that? Never. Huh?
No, but I was very young.
Yeah.
And I was so impertinent that I said I will make a cadenza of my own, without writing. And I played, I know that would be, that's very cadenza-like.
Yes.
But after 2 minutes, I didn't know what to do. It's not a laughing matter. I was very upset.
And then what happened? So you stopped?
No, I stopped. I went to chromatic scale, the up with the trill.
Yeah.
That helped. But I'm very resourceful. When something is wrong, I know how to get away without being noticed that I'm criminal.
A little talent helps too.
And I must say that, please eat because you...
I'm eating, don't worry. We have all night.
I don't have all night.
We have all night.
That happened. You will not believe it. In Chicago, Isaac was there, Francescazzi, and there was Michael's wonderful violinist.
Michael Rabin.
Maybe. But you must know that the G minor, Sarabanda, there is one moment, the guitar, exactly like this, in G minor. So
you went to the G minor? Well, that's okay. A little change of key.
No, but nothing. I don't thought that here. In
Chicago, I bet nobody knew except those three people.
No.
Yeah, of course.
They didn't know.
They didn't know.
It's very difficult because the music is Bach.
Yeah.
How do you must remember that I played it?
It's nice.
Then I always had to remember. That's to remember. But that's not.
That's good. It's good. It's not a memory slip. That's
No, not memory.
But you know, Nathan, for years, everybody says all the time, if somebody is a great technician, he can't be a musician. If you're a great musician, you're not a technician.
But people say stupid things very often.
Everybody always says, well, Milstein, of course, he has great fingers. I said, well, listen to what he does. Listen to what he does in the music.
Don't worry about it.
I'm not worried. Believe me, I'm not worried.
No,
I want to know from you, you see, because they criticize me also. They say, you look so cold when you play. I said, how do you know I look cold? Well, did you touch me? What do you mean I look cold? Because it looks easy. When it looks easy, they always say, well, he's not interested in
I agree
music.
with you. That's the way it looks. People used to say that hype is just cold. Can be cold, but that's...
But you know so much about so many things, about music, about art, about people, about history. And the sound that you make is the culmination. A lot of people ask me what it is about the sound, what it is that makes the sound, individual sounds. You have it, Yasha had, Chrysler. It's all individual sound. That means that every one of you have a soul.
Oh, that's a different story, the spirit of the person.
Okay, spirit, soul, together. Let's make it synonymous, fine. But what makes you do that? How do you explain to somebody that doesn't know about music, that doesn't know about sound, that doesn't know about the fiddle?
I can't explain that, I don't know what it is. Because explain that something that you can, in spirit you can't explain. Because vibrato is the result of what you...
No, vibrato is technique. I want to know in words your feeling.
No, I didn't speak about it.
You speak about a B flat. How did that B flat, the beginning of a Sicilian, the B flat, what happens in that B flat? What happens in that first B flat you play? What do you think of when you start that?
By itself, C bemol, only I try to not to spoil it.
Not to spoil it.
If you want to write...
That's good, not to spoil it. Not to spoil what? What don't you spoil?
The mood of what you want to do.
Uh-huh.
What I want try to do is not to play too sentimental, too slow, because it's not...
no, that's clear. I understand that. Not too slow, that's good.
Because
it's a dance.
The bass is separate from the...
Mm-hmm. What would you do if you didn't play the fiddle? What would you do in life if you never played the violin?
How do I know? Really? No.
What would you do if you could not play the violin?
Now?
Well, no, now, Mela, now it's...
Well, I played violin because my mother wanted me to play violin. I would never play violin.
Did you know you were going to play for the rest of your life?
Well, after the first time I will get $25.
Ah, it's good.
I played for the Russian Red Cross and the Grand Duchess, cousin of the Tsar. She was visiting always our class.
Uh-huh.
And they couldn't afford famous name to pay him. And our said, Nathan, you go to Grand Duchess, will invite you, but it's very late at night. No paying, no compensation. I went there, I played Paganini's 24 Caprice, it's a Geinerweise that I never played again. And she, after that, she came with a chocolate box and $25, rubles. It was extraordinary money.
It still is.
No,
It still is.
Now 25 rubles doesn't mean anything.
So it felt good.
Then I decided, it's a good profession. They applauded me, and I got
Give you money and chocolates.
chocolate.
Wonderful.
And my mother, ate the chocolate, and my mother took the money. It's very simple. But how
You're wonderfully simple, and I know that everything you do is wonderfully simple. But I want to know why
it's very
it's so
difficult
simple.
to be complicated.
It's very difficult to be. You're right. I
Because
agree with everything you say.
No, because if you complicate it, you spoil yourself.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. But your music making has such value. How come you keep that value? The value of the note, the value of intonation, the value of what it means to you. You're so absolutely without any
I tell you
affectation.
something, because I love music. I love even more violin than music. I love the instrument. Otherwise, I will not be able to play so long. I love the violin because the violin is really something.
Is that why you made transcriptions for it? The transcriptions you made, is that because you love
I
it?
love it. And most of the transcriptions are not bad.
They're very good.
Now they have six only. Now will be printed now. It's already printed. Two Prokofiev, Tchaikovsky's from the aria of Maria Reverie, from Tchaikovsky's Mazepa, and then Mussorgsky's piano piece. Wonderful. Not difficult, but very effective. I took the two Prokofievs and I spoiled them, but it's compensated because it's very good. I gave to violin more effects that he couldn't do it on the piano.
In 1987, 73 years after his first public performance, Nathan Milstein was one of 5 artists granted the Kennedy Center Honors Award by President Reagan at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington.
You 5, you honored 5, in your lifetimes of performing, how many millions have you entertained, inspired, provoked a deeper thought, and provided with memories to cherish. Everyone in this room, everyone joining us by way of television, can think back upon some time for which he is grateful to you. Thank you, and God bless you all.
And Pinchas Zukerman was chosen to pay the tribute to Nathan Milstein, the violinist's violinist.
I'm delighted to be able to be here to honor one of the great musicians of our generation, Nathan Milstein, the violinist's violinist, an artist of perfect technique and profound feeling. The man is a phenomenon, so brilliant that when we hear him play, we feel exhausted and exhilarated at the same time, uplifted and humble. He has warned us that it takes 60, 70 years to become a fiddle player. Well, Nathan, I have about 30 or 40 to go. I'm one of a generation, however, carrying the torch that he lit. But it never burns more brightly than when it is in his hands. Everyone in our world treasures him because he refuses to make a fuss. He disdains fanfare and flattery. There's an intense calm at the center of his being, a sense of self-truth. He is a man neither in need or in awe of fame. And so in some ways, this evening must be hard for him. But no one ever deserved it more. Nathan, your career is an honor to music. Thank you.